Hi everyone and welcome. Today I have a Halloween project. I guess it's kind of a tag. It's like 3 strips together, makes a tag maybe. But it started out with it's a pad of paper I've had for a long time and I've just never used it. And it's got Halloween themed items, pages, and I cut a few strips of some of the pages, and so now I'm gluing them with my Tombow glue stick, and I'm just gluing them onto cardstock to give them a little more weight. And so I glue all of them on the cardstock, and once it's all glued, that's where I am at right now, then I take it and cut it into strips. And I group the strips into 3s that I think look well together. And those will be my tags. I'm going to call them tags even though they are not typical tags. I made 4 groupings, but I end up really only doing 3 tags. And I just kind of rip them at will. I'm hoping to make 2 out of each strip, each group of strips. And so I'm just making them, and the whole thing ends up being maybe 5 or 6 inches long. And then I arrange them to where the one I want featured is on top and the other 2 will go behind. In the ripped section of the page, I'm just adding a little bit of black soot distress ink, and maybe down the sides if it looks like it needs some darkness. And then I'm going to add a little bit of frayed burlap, mainly on the ripped edge as well. And I think that was walnut stain, which I don't even think I actually use. Maybe I do. And I just dab off the excess. And that's going to be one section. So then I glue the strips together. This ink is finally about done. I've been struggling with it the last probably quarter of the tube. This page I just took an old piece of paper I had, and I created some tags on my computer and with some fonts on my computer, and I just printed them out, and it's just on it isn't computer paper, but it's almost like what you would maybe do a resume on, something like that. So it's a little bit thicker, but not real thick paper. So I chose the tag I wanted, and I had punched a hole. I punched a circle on a scrap of mixed media paper, and I used the Tim Holtz stencil for the moon mask to make it look like a moon up there. And then these black images here I cut out on my Cricut with some black cardstock, or on some black cardstock. And now I'm just using my embossing dauber to add some embossing ink, and then I'm adding some black embossing powder. And this is when I realize that at some point of time in the past, I must have had, because normally once I put embossing powder on that page, I'm done with that page. That page gets thrown away and I get a new page for the next one. But somehow or other, you can kind of see it in the pot, there are some white specks of white embossing powder. And so in all of these things, you'll see some little specks of white. And so I guess I'm stressing how important it is to keep your embossing powders pure. And I mean, it's not that it looks horrible, it just bugs me. But I didn't have any other black, and I wanted to use black, so I went ahead and just used it. And so this one's it's just 3 tombstones with a raven on it. And then I have a spider web that will go on top, kind of over that moon mask, or the moon. So I'm just kind of trying to use all that ink up, so I'm just kind of dabbing it on with my fingers. But hey, art's kind of messy sometimes. So I also did a page of 31s. And so I'm just taking one of the 31s that I did and distressing it a little bit. I believe that looks like black soot to me. And that, I think that's the same paper. Not really copy paper, but not really thick paper. And then that is one of the number strips, or one of the pieces in the number strips ephemera package. And that's kind of thing, when you're using that kind of paper, it's really hard to get the ink to lift off. Like if you put too much on, or it absorbed too much in a spot. And I'm using scorched timber to kind of give it a little bit of distressing. And I glue those last 2 pieces on. And I think that is the last of the first one. So I'm going to kind of just follow that same pattern to do all 3. different papers, they'll have different embossed items, but it's just kind of the same pattern. And so here I'm prepping my other 31s, and I'm just putting some distress ink on with my blending tool, and I think I'm going to give it a little splatter as well, just so some are already ready. I mean, the only reason I think I would use 31s is for a Halloween project, so I should have enough to last me a few years. And on to my second one. This one has a candlestick and then some chandelier crystals, but I think I end up substituting one of those because I think having both of those is a little too much. And so here's my other page, so I'm just going to pick out the item I want, or the tag, what I want it to say. And again, this sheet should be enough to last me a couple years at least. So I'm looking for my number strips that I want on this one. Give it a little distressing with the scorched timber. Also the 31. Just trimming it up. This one is going to say spooky. And see, that's where I swapped it out, that it had just too much. I swapped out one of the designs. And so on this one, I'm going to use the cat, the black cat, as well as another piece of spider web. And I'm going to do the same process. I'm going to glue my pieces down. And I use the sprays to darken edges. I actually think I got a little too much. I really wasn't wanting my crystals to get quite so dark. And had I put some sort of sealer, which I wish I would have done, like some sort of gesso or varnish, collage medium to seal it, then I could have removed that it was so dark. So now I'm going to use my dauber and do the cat and the spider web that's going with this one. That dauber is just ingenious. That was a really great creation. So again, I'm tossing that and using my heat gun to emboss those pieces. And you can kind of see the little white specks. So here I'm giving another punch for my next moon, taking some pumice stone, distress ink, and the smallest of 3 of the moon mask stencil portion, and just giving a little bit of it onto this just punched circle. And again, the same process. I'm putting down my number strip. And the 31. My spooky and my cat. I think I put my spooky down a little lower than what I wanted it, but I make it work. And number 2 is done. So I'm getting my strips for number 3. I've already selected the strips. I'm just trimming them to the right size I want. And make sure I use one of the fatter pieces as a background, as the bottom piece. I love those skulls. was trying to be careful not to really cover up the skulls as much as possible. And so I just start gluing my strips together. I thought this was really fun with the strips, and I think I'm going to do that with, do a Christmas project with that, and some springy. It was just fun. So I'm doing the same thing. I just, on this one I switched the side of the spider web. I believe I do. And again, these pieces were cut on my Cricut out of black cardstock. And just embossing them after using the dauber on it. And you may wonder what I'm doing with all these planner pages as my scraps. I have an Etsy shop and I print planner pages. And so when I've got a project or maybe my printer messed up or whatever, I have pages and I just recycle them and use them as work scraps. So this is the final one, and I'm adding the word boo, and then all three are done. And it was a lot of fun making these. I really enjoyed it. And once you get your process down, it actually goes pretty fast. So if you liked it, please consider subscribing. That would be awesome. And maybe even giving me a thumbs up. That would be cool too. I got some final pictures coming up for you to look at, but other than that, have a great day.